I want you to know that when he sat down after giving his remarks, Governor Patrick leaned over to me and whispered, "Do you want my gloves?" I said no. That was a mistake. If you smile, you will feel warmer. 1 year and 1 day ago, I stood on these steps before you about 72 hours after having been sworn in as your new state representative. I delivered to you a message of hope for my children and yours, for your grandchildren, that they would grow up in a society that champions self-determination, pluralism, individual liberty, and small d democratic initiatives. How good it was to be young and optimistic in early 2023. I spoke to you about the time that, as a new trial attorney at the Department of Justice, I had prosecuted Arizona Sheriff Joe Arpaio for criminal contempt. How we had won at trial, and how, although Donald Trump made Arpaio his very first of what would become many presidential pardons, the U.S. Justice Department and the voters had won the larger victory for the rule of law. I talked about, and I remembered how important that activism was, that looked to the future. Today, when I think about the rule of law, I'm reminded of John Adams. Do you know how John Adams became famous? He chose to represent British soldiers who had shot and killed protesters in Boston, the most unpopular people in this area. He chose to do that because he believed so profoundly in the potential of the nascent American experiment and in the rule of law that he was willing to risk everything professionally, personally, and reputationally to ensure that these people had a legal defense. And not long after that, with the American experiment on the precipice of failure before we even had a constitution, he reached across the aisle to leaders of the southern colonies, people, mind you, whose views about values and the rule of law could not be more inimical to what we hold to be true as Americans today. He did this, not, the bell tolls for them. He did this not because he saw merit in their positions, but because he believed in the future potential for American democracy, but because he believed in future generations of Americans, one of which was his son who would one day be president of these United States. Those future Americans who would make more perfect a profoundly imperfect union. My friends, we can do this again. In the Massachusetts legislature, I work with dozens of Republicans. And I'm going to admit to you something that could get me fired from my job. I like them. In fact, I filed a bill this session with Rep. Sean Garbely of Arlington. Anyone from Arlington here? Yeah, all right, here we go. It's on pay for people who work with those with intellectual and developmental disabilities. If this issue touches your life, you know that it's a real challenge in our communities all across Massachusetts. Over a third of the Republican House delegation has co-sponsored that bill, including the minority leader. They too are responsible for their constituents, and they too love our country. They do. So, if we're going to win this battle for the heart and soul of America, and that's what I'm interested in, by the way, is winning, then we must be more like John Adams. You, and I know you, the grassroots activists who soon will be deployed to Michigan, Wisconsin, New Hampshire, and Maine, you must engage in your outreach not out of antipathy for any person or policy or former president, but out of love for our great nation, out of trust in the people who cannot step up today, but one day will, if given the chance. That is what I want for my children, a chance. So, go out. Use your skills, your voices, your networks, your talents, and yes, spend your money. Go out and knock on doors. Make postcards. Make phone calls. Engage in hard conversations. I'm asking you to do all of these things out of love for our great nation. I know that you know what to do because I know you. I know you. And you, my friends, are the balm for this great nation's soul. Thank you so much.